You know, I almost didn't think that Anbernic was gonna be done for the rest of the year, not announce any more products. And then lo and behold, Anbernic once again has announced another device. And not only is it just any other device, it is another device in the RG35XX line of devices. If you aren't already familiar with these 35XX devices are all 3.5-inch screens with the same H700 chipset, and all tend to be around anywhere between 50 to 70 bucks. Each one, for the most part, has a unique factor to it. The 35XXH is a horizontal style device. The standard 35XX also is a DMG style design, but the Plus version is the same, just a little bit different. The SP is the one that just is a Game Boy Advance SP, and to finish off the lineup, they have the classic original Game Boy Advanced version, which I'll admit is actually my preferred version of the Game Boy Advance, not the SP, and it's just very rare to see a original Game Boy Advance style device. Whenever we see horizontal style devices, they tend to be that company's own unique take on a design, never a reiteration or sort of a reimagining of the original Game Boy Advance. And this is the first XX device in quite some time that does have me having some genuine excitement, because we don't tend to see, like I said, this original Game Boy design that much. And seeing it in this new form, granted, it's the 35XX version, so it's not that much bigger than an original Game Boy Advance, and it's also not going to be that much more powerful than a standard 35XX device, which at this point, it's kind of disappointing to see, because we've just gotten used to this level of performance. It's not impressive or shocking, and we know pretty much exactly how this thing is going to perform. Yes, there are slight differences per each model, but for the most part, we pretty much know exactly how this thing is going to perform. But with that comes the benefit of having a already established community behind this chipset in this line of devices that will support it with community-made software, optimized versions of emulators, or more optimized versions of the firmware to increase performance. And this device is going to be jumping into that with the community already there, with all the tools already available, which is something to take into consideration. I doubt this thing will be out in time for Christmas, but if you do order it, it should still be a pretty fun device. Since this device is alongside the other XX devices, it should be using the H700 chipset. And this chipset, since as I've established, we are well aware of, this device should be capable of emulation anywhere between maxing out at N64 and PSP level emulation to comfortably doing PS1, all your 8 and 16-bit titles, some Dreamcast very well. But most of these devices aren't well optimized for that, just due to the lack of buttons or analog sticks, and that applies here with the Anbernic RG34XX, which I'm just realizing that I probably said 5 through the majority of this video so far, and that is going to bother me to no end, and knowing that probably many other people are going to make the same exact mistake makes searching this device probably an absolute nightmare for people. I say nightmare, but it's going to realistically just be a minor inconvenience, but for hyperbole's sake, it's going to be a nightmare. Anbernic has been going out of their way to make some pretty decent D-pads and buttons the last few devices they've released, so my expectations are pretty high for these devices this time around. But something that does bother me is the X and Y buttons are slightly smaller and the same color as the housing, which in of itself isn't a bad thing. Just for me, for just it being just visually complete, seems kind of annoying to me. But overall, it's just a minute design detail that could probably be fixed by third-party buttons or some other way to change it to have all the buttons be the same color. That's just the me thing, so you can take it with a grain of salt. The only people I see buying this device, though, are people who are a massive fan of the original Game Boy Advanced layout. I love that design, don't get me wrong, but if I didn't have a whole sort of career based on reviewing these things, I would see no real purpose in buying this if I already had one of the many other handhelds that Anbernic sells, because the only thing that makes it unique is its design. Performance is exactly the same as we should expect from all the other handhelds. So realistically, if you already have a device or you're looking at many other devices, this one doesn't necessarily stand out as an obvious choice, unless the price is just amazing. Which realistically, it's not. It's gonna be about the same as all the others, anywhere between $50 and $70. For me personally, if I didn't already have a bunch of devices, and if I didn't already have a career based on reviewing these things, I would have looked at this and thought it was really cool and would have been my first purchase. I think if you're a huge fan of the classic designs and you're looking for more authentic feeling ways to play your games in all your ROMs and whatnot, it would be a pretty awesome way to go. But Anbernic's default firmware is kind of terrible, and if you're new to the scene, you might not necessarily be comfortable with uploading your own firmwares and ROMs. Circling back to the controls, I genuinely hope that the shoulder buttons are going to be really good on this device, because the original Game Boy Advance's shoulder buttons were so comfortable and felt so good to press, and I hope that continues with this new device. My expectations are a little mixed. Sometimes I'm not a huge fan of Anbernics and their shoulder buttons, but they just have so many varying designs that I doubt they've had any time to really consider just having the best shoulder buttons. But they tend to have pretty decent face buttons and D-pad, so I'm not expecting total garbage, but there's just some mild concern about the shoulder buttons in my personal opinion, just because I like a more smoother clicking force rather than some of the firmer or really short travel times you might find on other trigger and or bumpers. And after this device, I do seriously hope Anbernic slows it down. I personally think flooding the market with so many handhelds is not necessarily the best thing for the community. Sure, it's great for content creators to make videos about and talk about, but just having so many options makes it much harder for the average consumer to really decide what they want or what they might think is best for them. Just because there's so many options, the burden of choice can be overwhelming for some people. So going into next year, I hope at least if they do continue down this path of constant and I mean constant device releases, hopefully they start changing it up, because this H700 chipset, while not terrible, is just getting a little boring to talk about. Other than that, I would love to hear what you guys think. Is this device something you're really excited about? Are you excited to see an original Game Boy Advance style device? Because this doesn't happen that often. And do you also think Anbernic should slow it down? I would love to hear what you guys think about this down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All the other social media garbage down below. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.